Great. All right. Since it's 5:33, we will go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the first event of our 2022 Local League Capacity Building Workshop Series. Kind of a mouthful, but it really encompasses all the things that we're trying to do with this workshop series, which is to provide local leagues with the tools and resources that you need to operate really thriving leagues at the local level. And we've put together a full agenda of topics and workshops for you to benefit from. And these workshops are really coming from you. They're topics that you've requested, whether in an email to me or through feedback from our virtual convention. We really want with this workshop series to show you that the State League is here as a resource for you. And you have each other as resources because there's so much great work being done on the ground across the state. So these workshops will not only provide you with resources and skills, but also have you be able to share resources with each other. So tonight's event will focus on engaging students. And we have a great member, Laura Brown, who's here from the Center County League. She lives in State College, Pennsylvania, which is near Penn State, and has a great relationship with the Penn State chapter there. So as we come in, as we all greet each other, I'd like you to welcome Laura Brown and welcome each other. If you could please drop in the chat who you are and what local league you're representing. We will see who's here and we'll go ahead and get started. So Laura, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so I've been at numerous Zoom presentations, but I must confess this is the first one that I've presented at. So I'm very aware of eye contact. So I have notes here and I'm kind of going back and forth, but I'm trying to engage with you. So I'm going to count on your feedback to let me know how that's going. Before we get started, I'd like you to rename yourself on your Zoom picture. So in addition to your name, as I have done on mine, I wrote State College, Center County. So just so everyone has everyone else as a reference point, we'll all know who each other are, and you'll have the chat record of that as well. There's nothing flashy about this presentation. There's going to be no photos, no PowerPoint, no nothing but me talking and you talking. So it's a presentation and a conversation, and hopefully that brings us together with some ideas. I by no means consider myself an expert on this topic. This is a work in progress, so I can share my experience, some pitfalls, some tips, and we'll kind of take it from there and see how it goes. So if you have questions at any point in time, just interrupt me. I can't see all of you because I've got my notes here because I'm trying to be present with you. So that means I won't see a hand up, but I will hear an interruption. So just unmute yourself and say, Laura, stop. I have a question. We'll do questions at the end, but we'll also do a conversation with each other at the end because I suspect that some of you may actually know a lot more than I do. And so hopefully my sharing this history will give you a sense of where you are as you develop programs for students at institutions in your areas. So a little bit about me. I had a 40-year career at Penn State with connections in academic and student affairs, faculty, staff, administrators, students. And while working at the university, I began working on initiatives to encourage students to vote. So here's my story. Once upon a time, around the turn of the century, I was motivated by concern for the nation, along with embarrassment at the lack of university commitment to students' civic engagement. I joined forces with a small cohort of students. So, we sort of talked with each other and we said, oh, wouldn't this be a good idea? And very unofficially, we got together, no university support whatsoever. And we launched an organization called PSU Votes. We gave ourselves the name. We knew we wanted to be nonpartisan. We focused on voter education. We did not focus on as much on registration, although we did some of that. Our goal was to create an informed and engaged student electorate. The reason our focus wasn't entirely on registration was a lot of that work was done by partisan student organizations. So we have a lot of people hawking registration forms in a variety of locations on campus then and now. So we went in with total ignorance on my part and on the part of the students. We just wanted to accomplish something. So we enlisted the help of political organizations, faculty and staff. We organized some registration drives. We held what's at stake forums. So we took topics that would be particularly of interest to students, and we hosted events. So we took a program like one at stake forum would be about education, or one would have been on the economy, one might have been on the environment. We had entertainment. We got the Glee Club in to sing, patriotic songs. We had big name faculty kind of on both sides of discussions. So that was one initiative. We did a straw poll. The IT department did a campus-wide straw poll. So as you know, University Park at Penn State is very large. And there was a straw poll on campus done electronically, so we could sort of get a sense of where students stood in terms of their presidential decisions. We got a demonstration voting booth on campus, so students could actually see what the voting booth looked like and experience what that was about. There were articles and letters in the student newspaper. We did a big screen TV debate watch and had one of the most charismatic faculty members lead a discussion afterwards that was extremely well attended and really engaging. There was lots of energy. There was great work, but there was no support from the administration in spite of our efforts to garner some. There was no funding. So we were sort of cobbling together whatever we could. We were not data driven, nor did we collect any data. And most unfortunately, there was no scaffolding built for any future. So we put forward this tremendous effort. The election came, the election went, full stop. I was exhausted. The group disbanded, many of them graduated. And I vowed I would never, ever, ever do that again. But I did in 2004, 2008, and 2012. Different students, similar results, similar programs, similar story. I retired from Penn State in 2016, and with my newfound time, I joined the League of Women Voters and challenged the group to invest in making a campus connection. So they were very supportive, and a new position was created for me. I became the League of Women Voters of Center County liaison to Penn State. So with the League at my back, I knocked on all those doors again and met with faculty and staff. Lots of contacts that I had formed over the years were useful. Lots of meetings, Vice President of Student Affairs, Vice President of Academic Affairs, Head of New Student Orientation, faculty, Head of Student Government, got lots of suggestions, lots of referrals, made good connections, but actually very little happened. It felt good, sort of. In 2018, a new office was created on campus with civic engagement in mind. It's called the Office of the Center for Character, Conscience, and Public Purpose. Most people are referring to it now as the Center for obvious reasons, to focus on voter education. The center's website featured Vote 411, so we've got some traction there. They updated their voting site with information from the league, so that was a feel good. We were working in that sort of partnership. We got permission to distribute paper copies of our voters guide on campus, and so there was a readership program with the New York Times and the local papers, so those voters guides got distributed in stacks near that. So that was 2018. It wasn't, I wouldn't say it was great, without great success. We tried to start a working group within the league, so I wasn't out there on my own, and we had a small group of people with some shared interest, but there was very little takeoff, got very little traction. So the one place that did begin to feel like a connection was the center, the center, and they got involved with the Campus Election Engagement Project, CEEP, Paul Loeb's group. And that group is now called Civic Influencers, if that means anything to you. They also began assessment projects with NSOLVE, the Tufts National Study of Learning, Voting, and Engagement. Some of you may know about that study and the assessments they do on campuses. They also got involved with some Big Ten voting initiatives. So things were beginning to happen on campus that had not really occurred in the past. A faculty contact, so this is the randomness of this, a faculty contact invited me to present to her colleagues who were involved with a minor at Penn State called Civic Engagement. And they wanted me to share possible projects that students who were doing this minor might take up. One attendee of that presentation invited me to her class to present possible projects that they might do with the league. And so I went in and we talked about voting and registration and nonpartisan and blah, blah. And two students in that organization, I had said, and you could even start a league chapter on campus. It was one of like a long laundry list of things. Two guys on the wrestling team, cute as buttons, I mean, adorable, said they wanted to start a league chapter. So they did a lot of the groundwork. They got a constitution. They found a faculty member. Because I was retired, I couldn't be an advisor to the group, but there had to be an official advisor. They found a faculty member who was willing to be the advisor. They got a bunch of their wrestling team and other acquaintances together and had a little bit of a population. And they actually put forward the paperwork and found someone to be president, and all the offices were filled and became an official organization. If you know anything about Penn State touts the number of student organizations it has. The bar for becoming an official organization is not low. There's a lot of like nitty-gritty stuff to do. They did it all, they became official. And so, that was pretty exciting. So I just went totally off script. Yeah, I was doing pretty well up until then. So I'm gonna try and find myself now. So the students who joined the organization at the time, because membership in the league league meaning Center County, PA, and US had become free, it made it a nice perk. So we could say, if you join the Penn State organization, you can become a member of the whole group, and you can then be getting information. And so that was, was kind of a selling point for their membership. But then spring of 2020 came and COVID came. So the leadership stepped away, everything came to a stop, and the organization, because its members and everybody kind of disbanded, became frozen. Frozen means that you had to go through all the rigmarole to become an official organization again. So we were kind of at ground zero. I again went back to campus, went back to contacts, and through a leader in the student government who put her tentacles out, she found a student who would be interested in kind of taking up leadership. And in fact, I think she might be with us tonight. Giselle, are you out there?
Yes,
Giselle,
I am.
here somewhere? Yes, you are here. So Giselle is actually with us. Giselle and I met, and I'm delighted to introduce you to her. She probably can tell you more about where the League of Women Voters Penn State University is right now. But I can tell you, in her capable hands, and she has lined up several student leaders who have joined with her to unfreeze the organization and kick it off once again. They have taken my breath away in terms of the structure they've established, the organization that they've put together, the body of students that are now have joined forces to make this organization take off. So I'll just wrap this. So that's where we are. 2022, the organization is defrosted or defrosting. Giselle can tell us more about that if she has things to add. I will tell you what my sort of lessons learned are, or the takeaways. Oh, there's a couple more things I should add, so I'll just add them before I do. In addition to that liftoff, the center I'm now in a monthly standing meeting with the head of the center. Remember the Center Character, Conscience, and Public Purpose. So I'm connected more formally with them. And I'm going to be in an advisory group that's working with administration, and a roundtable group that's dialoguing for University Park to look at how we can do more better. So that's a plus. My focus now, and I think the campus focus will be able to be on student engagement and education, because Penn State is beginning to do an official voter registration linked in with class registration. So when students go online to register for classes, they will be offered the opportunity to do voter registration, which sounds like woohoo. I'm counting on some glitches in that process. I think there are going to be major problems with addresses. I think there's going to be issues with graduate. There's a lot, I mean, as you can well imagine, wrapped into that, but it's a step forward. And I think it's a good step forward once we work through all the problems. So there's going to be more to do, most critically, with after students are registered. How do we get them informed, engaged, encouraged to vote? So that's really, I think, the heart of the work that needs to be done. Lessons learned. I would say step one is figure out what the institution you're looking at is doing and how they're doing it, and build on that. Finding an insider, somebody who has connections with student affairs, academic, somebody who was kind of positioned as I was, is helpful. So knowing somebody in the institution is a good thing. Knowing organizational structure is important. So when one person says no, you can go up the food chain. So, sort of paying attention to that is helpful. Knowing in your heart that no isn't really an answer, it's just a detour. So never really taking no for an answer, just thank you and go on to the next step. Figure out why the roadblocks exist. I'm not entirely sure. I've never been officially sure of why roadblocks exist at an institution like Penn State, and there's no buy-in from administration to really make this happen. Why that was true in the year 2000, I don't know. Certainly they're mandated to do more, but not doing it. So the why becomes a big question, and figuring that out, I think it's more making some conclusions from experience. Connecting with faculty, staff, and administration is important, but it comes down to finding a person who will actually take action. So you want to ID a passionate ally. Finding capable, energetic students who are passionate about making a difference and wanting to call upon their generation to step up is fundamental. Tapping into existing politically related organizations is helpful. Having the league at your back is fabulous. I would also say, and this happened sort of inadvertently, connecting with your county elections office is incredibly helpful. And actually, I started out by volunteering, and now I'm actually working on occasion in the elections office, finding out what their problems are as a result of university involvement, is important. What happens when those forms come in and they've not been filled out correctly? What are the consequences of that? I've also gotten to know the county commissioners through that work, and I found them to be great allies. We're now talking about mail-in ballot drop boxes on campus, and we have had one actually, and a satellite voting location. Polling places have changed on campus as a result of those conversations. So there's a lot that can happen through involvement with your county's people. And I found them to be incredibly helpful. So I think a reach out in that direction. I would also say keeping track of things is important. As I said, when I started this, I thought it was a one-off. So I kept track of nothing, except the box that was in the bottom of my closet for 4 years. I would say keep track of everything, the people, the events, the contacts, the successes, the failures, anything, and data. If you can get some data before you get started, find out what's happening, and NSOLV will help with that. But then you can assess your successes, and that would be just a terrific thing to have. Also, if you keep track of things when you're invited to do a presentation like this, you don't have to spend hours going through like piles of paper to figure out when things happened and why. Hopefully I've captured that fully. And take advantage of resources. So there are, I just attended today, and maybe you all know about this, Students Learn, Students Vote. Did you know about that organization? News to me. So if you Google Students Learn, Students Vote, they have every other week, they have an information session. You can join the organization. They have fabulous resources for students, as well as the community people and people on campus who are engaged with them. On the League of Women Voters of Centre County website, I have put together a list of resources for college students. So if you want to go to the Centre County website, which is lwvcentercounty.org, you can go under Voter Toolkit. You'll see resources for students or something like that. And you'll see a number of things listed there that have been helpful. The All-In Campus Democracy Challenge, state student guides. So you can see it. So that's what I know. Before I open it up to questions, and nobody's interrupted me, so I'll hope you're still there. Giselle, are you with us? Maybe she had to leave. I know she had a class. I see her square there, but I don't see her there. So, well, if she comes back, you can ask her questions, but I am happy to tell you anything else and respond to questions. But I'd also love it if you all went through and kind of shared if you've had any connections on campus and made any progress or inroad. There's Giselle. Giselle, you have anything to add about where things are now? I don't want to put you on the spot, but it certainly would be helpful if you could sort of talk about what it felt like at your end.
Yeah, no worries. I just got a quick phone call. So basically on our end, we're still in the process of reinstating the League of Women Voters, but we have established our leadership team, myself and my co-president, Sydney, who is not here because she's working, but we've been working on things like establishing leadership connections with the university and other things of that nature. So I think the best advice that I could probably give is actually finding younger students. So I myself am a first-year student, but a lot of motivated and really like invigorated students find callings in other areas, you know, whether that's politically affiliated organizations, student government, or just other things that they're passionate about. And they dedicate so much time to those organizations, like their freshman and sophomore year. So by the time that they're juniors and seniors, they already have leadership roles and they just can't take on something like this, a project of really starting that organization. So targeting students where that can become their involvement in their organization is really important. And the way that I found about this opportunity was actually through the UPUA, the student government that I'm a part of, and really leveraging their resources has been super helpful. I know that they have not only some monetary resources, but also a lot of connections in terms of university staff and faculty, as well as just the administration as a whole, because they deal with them so frequently. So though that has also been a great connection for us. And so really, I think it's important to target younger students, but also give us kind of the liberty to kind of go out and try to see what we can do on our own. And especially because the league itself is an organization, sometimes we question, well, is this the right move that we're making? Should we be moving forward with this? But I think something really great that Laura Brown, as well as our advisor, Dr. O'Hara, have really been like helping us with is just like we check in with them, we let them know what we're doing. But her and I take on a lot of initiatives to get things done, even over our like break and stuff like that, just because that's has worked best for us. So that's kind of on our end with League of Women Voters at Penn State. We're looking to have our first general body meeting starting in just a week or two, as well as our own like executive meetings. We're looking to do some of that registration piece, but a lot of that is done through the student government as well as like PSU votes, and then but also have that education piece and really kind of form a community. A lot of what keeps people in student organizations is that community, is those like social events and just like knowing you're going to see your friends there, you're going to make friends there, and that makes a world of difference. So we're really trying to kind of establish that community with LWVPSU and really establish kind of like that passion for advocacy so that we can have that type of longevity that we're looking for. So yeah, I'm obviously open to answering any questions, but that's just kind of my piece, my kind of advice that I could give.
I hope it's okay that I'm just jumping in on something with Gazelle. I'm wondering if the Student League of Women Voters chapter ever meets with the Center County League of Women Voters chapter. I love seeing cross-generational conversations rather than just pigeonholed in certain spots.
Yeah, so one position that we kind of decided to go with was having a liaison between like the League of Women Voters Penn State and League of Women Voters Center County. So we're still kind of in the process. We're going to have a meeting either like this week or next week about what that role is going to look like, but having one student dedicated to that kind of communication, making sure that we're always up to date on that communication. And just like kind of tonight, looking at the emails that come out from League of Women Voters, PA and Center County, and what events can we attend, all those types of things, making those kind of events for League of Women Voters Penn State. And that's just us as a group attending those Center County events. So that's kind of our plan moving forward in terms of how we can have that kind of like cross-generational conversations, as well as just making sure that everyone becomes a member of the League of Women Voters Center County and is phased as an active member of that as well.
I'll just add to that, the liaison from the League of Women Voters PSU is going to be attending steering committee meetings for the League of Women Voters Center County. And so I'm hoping that we can find ways for the organizations to partner on events, candidates nights, other kinds of things where a student perspective would really be an asset. I think social things may happen if we ever get past COVID, but certainly there are events where the student perspective would be enormously helpful for this community.
So this is May, this is May Zia from Harrisburg area. So do you have plans or suggestions on how you're going to keep your organization going? Because obviously students graduate, right? So the idea is, how can you, or how can we help our local universities, and Harrisburg has a number, establish student groups such that, it's clear that when things roll from one graduation year to the next, there's a handoff.
So I think that a big part of that is starting with like younger leadership. So like I will have like 3 or 4 years to kind of grow the organization and like make sure and like lay those foundations. But in addition to that, like offering leadership, like institutionalizing that type of leadership, that's something that's very attractive to students. And so like they want to go for those positions and they want to put in the effort to do those things. Mm-hmm. Another aspect of it is kind of almost like notoriety as a student organization. There are some Penn State clubs that are very popular and very well known at Penn State. There's things like the Nittany Lion Fund, which is about like, stocks and consulting. And there's other things like UPUA student government, which is, it's just student government. But all of these things have a certain level of notoriety on campus. Most students know what they are. And a lot of students kind of have a certain image, they have a certain reputation that attracts students to them. And so something that we're focusing on is really kind of building that reputation, building that notoriety at Penn State. So when students come here, they know that we have a League of Women Voters and they want to be a part of it because they know how beneficial it can be for them, but also the type of work that they're able to do through the organization. And I think a lot of that just also comes from like your like league being persistent with the university, because I know that I was definitely not the first person or first student that Laura reached out to, but continuing to do so, eventually you will find that student. And eventually, like if you keep pushing hard enough, there is going to be some give somewhere. So always like following up with those students and following up with like what they're doing, it can be super helpful.
Thank you.
Great answer, Giselle. Thank you.
Giselle, you mentioned PSU Votes. What kind of collaboration or coordination have you seen with PSU Votes in the past? Maybe that would be for you, Laura, or what would you envision, Giselle, so that the work can be coordinated in some way?
You want to take a shot at that, Giselle, or you want me to?
I think I don't have too much experience with PSU Votes. I have more experience with that on like the student government side. So I feel like Laura, you might be better for that question.
So you remember back in yesteryear when PSU Votes started in 2000, without any university recognition or support. Ironically, the center adopted PSU Votes as their thing about voting. So they sort of grabbed that, the name, took it over, which was fine. I had, basically passed it on. I said, do what you want with it, I'm leaving. And PSU Votes has become the name that the center uses for their voting initiatives. So the relationship is that I will be meeting frequently with the head of the center, who is de facto sort of the leader of PSU Votes. He is connecting it with the Undergraduate Student Association, which is, so UPUA is University Park oriented, but then he's also working to move that system wide so that all campuses at Penn State have some connection to PSU Votes. He is bringing student leaders together. He's creating voting ambassadors who will be doing something related to voter education from the center. But he is also relying on student leaders like Giselle to come together. So the Dems, the Republicans, whomever, all the politically oriented organizations are going to be part of a University Park roundtable that's basically informing his practice. So I don't know if that fully answers the question, Allison, so PSU Votes is a subunit of the center at this point, and work in politically oriented organizations, whether they're partisan or nonpartisan, is going to kind of get brought into that as a voice for the students driving the university efforts.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Good question. Does anybody have?
Giselle.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
From Giselle, I would love to hear what drew you and maybe from the experiences of some of your board members to the league. What made you want to get involved?
Yeah, sure. So I've always been very politically, oriented. As in high school, I was a debater. I debated for all 4 years of high school. I also worked for Mayor Brian P. Stack, who's the mayor of Union City. I'm originally from New Jersey, so it's a town there. For 4 years, I did everything from like secretary work to tenant advocacy support, to like food aid distribution. And one assignment that I got, which was kind of strange, was that the mayor gave me like a stack of papers and he asked me to call these people and ask them why they voted in the presidential election, but why they didn't vote in the municipal election. And not very many people were kind to me, but it was a really interesting experience. And working in that environment just taught me so much about the power of municipal government and how much that impacts our lives, and how little so many students, so many people know that, at the end of the day, their municipal vote matters so much. And sometimes it pales in comparison to the vote that their, the presidential election is going to have and that impact. So I've always been really fascinated by voting and, a lot of the politics behind it. I myself am a political science major, but also I just have also been interested in how my peers perceive voting and if they vote and why they don't or do vote. So having the opportunity to work with the League of Women Voters just really stood out to me because I have kind of some sort of experience with this type of work. And it seemed like something that would really suit me and something that I could be passionate about and like display that conviction to my peers, which is why I was interested. And I think it's very similar for many of my peers. You know, a lot of people who are, you know, interested in politics and interested in that type of field and also want to just do some advocacy around voting.
Thank you.
Basically, Erica, we hit the jackpot when we found Giselle.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
Very kind.
If I may, I'll ask another question. What do you think are the technologies that are most attractive to students in terms of getting the word out? You know, there's so many touch points now with different applications, and you know, we can guess here in Harrisburg, you know, what some of them might be with younger voters and younger, maybe even younger professionals. But from your perspective with the students, is it TikTok? Is it Instagram? Or, you know, the websites, Facebook? What? There's so many options here. How do you typically receive communications and then send out communications?
So in terms of communication, as an organization, we are mostly heavily relying on GroupMe's. In terms of organization communication, that's kind of the method that all Penn State University Park clubs use. So that's pretty standard for us. And then kind of in terms of spreading the word, Instagram is basically the best kind of way because TikTok, although it can spread the word, it's very kind of tentative in terms of a video needs to go viral and it doesn't reach a lot of audiences, and in terms of that kind of aspect of it, it can be very difficult to kind of hit the jackpot on that one. But Instagram, we can specifically target Penn State students. It's very typical for students to put that they go to Penn State on their profiles and stuff like that. And also for us to get reposted by other student organizations that have a lot more following, or Onward State, or all of these types of accounts that almost every Penn State student follows, because it's just kind of how has all the information they need to know. So we're definitely looking at leveraging platforms, but more specifically things like Instagram and kind of hyperlinking the websites that they need to utilize in terms of voter registration or education. But having those quick infographics that can be really educational, Instagram seems to be the best way to kind of engage younger audiences in terms of technology and social media. And then on kind of the registration side, the way Penn State has it set up in terms of it being built into the interface where students enroll in classes in LionPath, that is super helpful. That's how I found it, was just it's just voting and you just click on it and you fill out the form. So having it built into the Penn State system is also great because people are familiar with that system, they know what to click on. And so that can also be super helpful.
I think other institutions in Pennsylvania, maybe some of you can speak to this, are working with the Department of State to do that combined, or that offering when students schedule classes, they can register to vote simultaneously. So I think I heard Temple was doing that. I'm not sure what other schools, but I think, and maybe Pitt. So I think that is catching on as a way, sort of like driver's license, at the driver's license place, they do that. So I think that's now engaging, and really it makes a lot of sense that we would encourage students in that way, because the reality is, if they vote when they're in college, if people vote when they're in college, they're going to continue to vote. And so this is the time to really, I don't have to tell, I'm speaking to the choir here. It's the time to do that. The one question I have, and Meg, maybe this comes to you, is thinking forward. Clearly, there's a lot of interest and potential to starting student chapters of the League. And I think there's a lot of, I suspect that Giselle will be a lifelong League member, And I suspect that other students who become involved when they're in college, because they will be connected to state and local leagues at the same time, will continue to be engaged and see that as a way to ongoingly stay active as a citizen. I'm not sure how League of Women Voters US or PA will recognize student chapters. And I think that's a dialogue that needs to happen beyond Center County or beyond Pennsylvania. I don't know if we're the first. I think we are the first, Penn State, meaning the first student chapter. And if that's the case, perhaps it will become a template for others. And maybe this is the time to start a dialogue about how we begin to approach other institutions. We've got a cadre of people here who are interested in that. And what are we offering and how do we offer it? So I think that's something that needs to be considered.
Absolutely. And many of you may know that this year is a national convention year. So there will be opportunities to submit, requests for discussion, make motions, even if it's just making a motion to talk about that on the floor of convention. I think it's a really good suggestion. And I think it's important to point out that technically by National League standards, the Penn State chapter isn't a formal chapter, because that would involve, electing a board of directors, passing bylaws, opening a bank account. It's not necessary. It's not technically a chapter. It's affiliated with the Center County League, but I think we could potentially move towards that, because I totally agree, Laura. I mean, it's the future of the league, and it's the members that will be with us for the longest time if they start with us as students.
Yeah, and maybe the on-ramp needs to be different for a university chapter than it is for a chapter. And I would hope, I was just on the national site the other day and looking at the listing of where chapters are. And I thought, how cool would it be if the student chapter was listed there, so that as students are looking at universities, as parents are looking at universities, that connection is made. I just think it has a lot of potential.
I would agree, and I would also try to put a plug in here, in an area where a lot of our students are the ones who cannot afford to go to the four-year institutions. So this is, big Harrisburg area community college place. This is a big area of part-time students who are, have an extended length to their college experience. And that, and they're, got all sorts of other things that are on their plate. So how do we approach that community in such a way that we equally build in, the desire and the competency and the enthusiasm to, stay engaged in the political process, which is, I think, what we, would really like to see. So I think there may be some things that would be a little different for that particular, a style of four-year or further education that we might need to make some adjustments for.
May, I think that's a really great point, and certainly it's something we grapple with at Penn State, because we have smaller campuses offering two-year programs, some four-year programs throughout the state. And so often we become so University Park centric that we lose track of the huge number of students throughout the state that really need this connection just as much as the students who are here with us in State College. So I think that's a really good point. How do we embrace everyone who's going, I would say, beyond high school? And in fact, there's the potential for high school as well. So there's nothing to say there couldn't be League of Women Voters chapters in schools. Kids, I think the potential is huge. And I personally feel like students are among the most disenfranchised population. Senior citizens are the other. And I think that for senior citizens, it's the lack of technology and kind of the way they get cut. Many people get cut off if they're not technologically savvy for students, it's they're leaving home, they're going to a new community. How do they register? How do they vote? Do they do absentee or mail-in? And universities don't make it easy. There's no time off. And so, there's just a lot, there's a lot that makes it hard. When you leave New Jersey and come to State College and you lose all your sense of, you lose your bearings in terms of what's happening politically, even if you have tried to stay on top of things. So there's a real need.
Yeah, and I would say that our local league has thought about how do we reach out to the high schoolers, right? Because we used to have a really robust program to go into all the high schools, and we competed, quite honestly, with the political parties to do voter registration. But I wouldn't say that we have done very well or very much of voter education. And you could certainly piggyback and align with the history professors, for instance, in the various schools, the high schools, right? And that they tend to be more stable. They tend to be people we could work with year in, year out, as they incorporate ideas about voting and suffragettes and the whole thing into their materials. But Giselle has given me some ideas about political science clubs in high school, right? History clubs in high school, debate clubs in high school. I mean, we hadn't thought about those groups that we thought, well, we could actually do something with those groups in such a way that, they would even think to ask as they're looking at colleges, oh, do you happen to have a student chapter of the League of Women Voters? I'd be really interested in that. That would, I think, help the league. And it might be an interesting thing for a lot of institutions to embrace.
I know that Radnor High School has a program, and I know Angelica, you can definitely speak more to it than I can, but they've been doing some really cool work.
Yeah, so I went to Radnor High School and I graduated last year, and I started interning with the League of Women Voters in Radnor. We had this internship program where high school students could intern with the league and work on basically a project. So I worked on voter registration. And then with a couple of other interns, we kind of had this idea to bring a high school League of Women Voters chapter at our high school. So we were able to create one, and I think we had over 70 members. So we would all basically work together and basically help encourage voter registration for all the students in our high school. And one of the main events we had was that we were able to reach out to almost every single graduating senior and give them the information to vote. We were able to give them a paper with all the information they need, and then a form to register to vote. And we were able to ensure about 75% of graduating seniors were registered. So that was basically my experience with it. I know it's a little bit different because I was already with the League of Women Voters of Radnor, so that was easier for me to make the connection with Radnor High School. And I think it was a really great program, and we were able to get a lot of other people, a lot of other high schoolers also interested in the league. So we had a lot of new members that joined the local League of Women Voters. And I think it was also easier for us to continue that because we knew younger students that were entering high school who joined our club. And I think it was just a really great way to reach out to high schoolers through high schoolers, and creating that connection with the League of Women Voters.
I think you made a really great point, Angelique, that it has to be student to student, whether it's in high school or college, coming in and saying, this is what you should do, or this is what I know, is not helpful or inspiring in the same way as it is when students are talking to their cohort. And I think that's what's so empowering when I hear your message, when I hear Giselle's message, and from other students, they really know where students are and what they need, and they can best address that. Yeah.
I think May also brought up reaching out to high school history teachers. That's what we've been trying to do to help create like more student chapters in our county. We didn't really receive that much of a response, but we were able, for me personally at Radnor High School, we were able to connect with our history teacher, and he was able to give us a lot of good information and resources, which was really helpful. And so I think one of the ways to like reach out to other high schoolers could be through both history teachers and students, because the history teachers are really able to give them like a guidance within the school. And then the League of Women Voters is able to give them like guidance outside of school. So having like that good middle ground is also really beneficial.
Yeah, Amy.
We have a program that's been about 4 years in high schools, but what we found were that we couldn't reach all the seniors in history and social studies. So we actually went into English classes, and that way we reach everybody. And so we have a lot of resources. I don't know if anybody's been on our website, but we have a lot of resources kind of geared to students. It's lwvpgh.org. There's a voter resource library, and we have these things called tutorials, but I'm changing the name to modules. And they're short little PowerPoints that you could just take and individually teach somebody how to do a voter drive, or know exactly what midterms are coming and what that's all about. So we love talking to the history or social studies department teachers, but a lot of times they're not reaching all the kids at this point. Mostly in Pennsylvania, 9th grade is where civics is for all the kids. And then after that, it's upper level classes. So that's been our experience. But I'm just so impressed with these wonderful young women and what they're doing. So thank you.
Sure.
Hi, just real fast. I put in the chat, I'm curious. I was wondering about the word unit versus chapter or formal or a league. That would be, we in Southeastern Pennsylvania, we have a lot of schools and a lot of universities and colleges. And then in Delaware County alone, there's 15 high schools. And that's not counting that's just public. So that would be a lot to try to worry about forming formal groups. But the word unit, I was just wondering how that could be as like an interim step or prior to something formal, getting kids thinking and talking to each other.
Yeah, there may be a way to, I'm sorry, Jan, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Anne, I think that really is the issue that's coming out to me, is that we need to look at it from an organizational standpoint, the league, and maybe the national convention, about promoting how we can better organize these kinds of units or clubs or chapters at universities and at high schools, and facilitate that by making it not so hard or not so restrictive as it is for an organization that's in a county, for example.
Yeah, I think that's a really sort of innovative direction to go in. And I think, having something that's equal but different, and with a different orientation, a different onboarding, a different connection, but still very much a part of officially, would be an interesting thing to look at. Yeah. So it's a way to go.
Hi, this is Terry Griffin, President of the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania. Thank you all so much for being a part of it. And Lori, thank you so much. I think the suggestion that was just made for the state to consider how we can integrate the establishment of units or clubs or a more defined way of integrating the students into an organization is something definitely we're considering. Our executive director, Meg Pierce, is really providing leadership in this area. So please know that this is something that we're taking into consideration.
Great. Well, I need to just thank all of you for being here. It was healthy for me to kind of relive history and refresh myself in terms of what's happened over 22 years. And Giselle, I have to thank you because very honestly, I didn't know till today that Giselle was coming to this. And it just didn't, we didn't put it together. We didn't organize in any way, but you really stole the show here for me. And I think everybody else in terms of really sharing where you have come from and what your experience is. And, you know, I just got to say, like, rock on. So it's my privilege to work with you. And I'm just delighted to have the wind of the League of Women Voters in my sails, because without the League, clearly over 20 years or so, not much happened. So it was really the League that gave power to the message to Penn State of let's do something here. And I would challenge all of you to take that win and have it blow you forward in terms of your work at the institutions that you have connections with, because it's just such important work. We all know that's what we're doing here. So it's been a privilege to do this. Thank you for inviting me. And we'll look forward to accomplishing more together.
Thank you, Laura. What a wonderful positive note to end on. Can we have a round of applause for Laura and Giselle?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for offering us your time and expertise. And to everyone that showed up, thank you so much. We will send the recording of this video around. So if you'd like to share it with your fellow leaders at the local level, please do. And look for more information from us about February's workshop. It will be about League technology. So if you haven't already completed that technology survey on behalf of your League, please do so. Sam sent a reminder email about it yesterday, and that will better inform our conversation when we meet again in February. So thanks again to Laura and Giselle. Have a great night, everyone.
Take care, everybody, and thank you. Stay healthy.
Bye.